Hey crafty people, it's Tasha here for Trinity Stamps, and today I'm sharing a sneak peek for the upcoming release. I've got a couple of products that I'm going to be sneaking in this video, so keep your eyes out for those. So I'm going to dive straight in. I'm going to mix up some, this is the transparent texture paste. I'm going to mix it using some Ink on 3 inks. So I've got some of these mini cubes that were part of the card kit that Trinity released in the summer. So I've got this is just a piece of stamp packaging that I'm just using to mix it up on. So I've squashed the ink onto the acetate, and then I'm just mixing the colour in with a palette knife. I'm not too bothered about mixing the two colours because I know that that's what I'm going to be doing anyway, so I'm just using the same palette knife. Now I've got some sparkles from Wow. There's various different ones, I will have them linked on my blog, and I'm just adding a little spoon of those into this texture paste just to give it some glitter and glitz and sparkle. So I've mixed some into the pink, and now I'm mixing some into the orange as well. And I've already got my stencil on my cardstock. So I've got a slimline card sized piece of black cardstock. And then I've got one of the stencils from one of the new stencil sets that we are releasing. So this one is, I should so know. Oh, it's a set of 3 stencils and I'm going to be using them all today. So this is like fireworks. It's awesome. I've got some of that texture paste left and I don't want to waste it, so I just grabbed out a piece of I think that this will be Nina £80, and I'm just spreading it on there, and then I'll probably use that for die cutting out of at a later date. I just don't like to waste all that texture paste and colour. You do want to clean your stencils off straight away when you're using stuff like this, just to give me a few seconds to get everything that I needed to clean it off. I just laid a couple of baby wipes on the top of my stencil to keep it all like damp so it didn't start to dry. So here's one of the other stencils that's part of the set. So you are going to be getting a stencil for fireworks in the sky, and then also 2 stencils of like a cityscape, like silhouettes of buildings. So I've just added, these are the taller of the 2 sets of buildings, and I've just added those to a piece of, again, Nina £80, and I'm just adding some blue ink on them. I want these ones to be a little lighter because these are going to be the ones that are further in the distance, and I'm not too bothered about getting a perfect blend because I know that it's going to be partially covered anyway, so I'm just whacking some colour down. Now the piece of cardstock that I'm using is not as wide as those stencils, so in order to make sure I got the second stencil lined up properly, I just lined it up against the first stencil so that I could see where it should be sitting. And because I want a much darker and stronger concentration of ink for these shorter buildings, I am using my domed foam blender. It's so hard to say that. It's not, but it is for me. So these are going to be the buildings that are closer to me. Now on each of these 2 building silhouette stencils, on the other side of the stencil are the lights, which is super cool. So as with all Trinity's stencils, they are laser etched, so it's really easy to see where to line them up. And there's loads of different ways that you could use these, and loads of different ways that you could add that light for the buildings. But today, I don't really know why, I decided to grab a gel pen and just do that. I think partially because I didn't want all of the lights on. I wanted it to look like some people were still in the offices and some weren't. And then, like, whilst I was doing it, I was like, would it be the people at the top of the buildings that were still there? Would it be the bottom? Where would it be? And I was like coming up with weird little scenarios in my head about why people would still be in their office at this time. So I did the first one in gold for those closer buildings, and then the ones that are further away, I did those in silver, just to add a bit of a contrast. So this is a sentiment that I stamped from one of the new stamp sets that's in this release, and that's called Happy Dance. It's pretty awesome. So I've embossed it onto some more black cardstock using a metallic sparkly gold embossing powder from Wow, and I've decided that I want to fussy cut the top of it, but I want to keep the bottom straight, and I wanted to do it straight either side of the sentiment. That'll make sense. So I'm fussy cutting it, but I wanted to show you here, when you see people fussy cutting, it is sped up. Like, this is the real speed at which I fussy cut. It takes a long time, but I do think that in this case in particular, the effect was worth it. So I'm just using a ruler to create a straight line that's going to run across, and then I'm going to use my long scissors to just cut either side of that sentiment, using the smaller snips to cut that straight line between each word, and I just really like the effect that gave. So whilst I'm doing all of this, I've got my fireworks off to the side drying, because I want to add some more, but I need those ones to dry before I can place the stencil back on, otherwise I'm just going to end up with a big smudgy mess. So I've now got some more ink. I've got the little green ink pad that was again with that card kit, and then I've got some of the blue in a re-inker, so I've just added a few dots of that, and I'm just mixing up the texture paste just the same as I did for the previous colours, and then I'm going to add some sparkles again. I just grabbed out a choice of sparkles that I thought would go with the colours that I was using, and then I added a little bit of gold in as well, because why not? So once I've got all that nicely mixed up, make sure that all of that glitter is really well mixed through. I'm going to grab my stenciled fireworks sky panel, and I've already got the other fireworks lined up where I want them to be, and I'm just going to use the same technique. I just sort of put one colour into the centre, towards the centre of the firework, and the other colour towards the outside, just to give a little bit of variation of colour, because I know that, you know, when you see a firework go off, it isn't just one colour that goes off. I really like how those turned out, and they're so pretty. Look at that. And then there was some of the blue one left, so I added that to that panel, and again I used some baby wipes to cover it up. So now this is where I went wrong. So I tried to add these smaller fireworks to the centre, which I think would work really well if it wasn't for the fact that I got this stencil on really textured, like the fireworks are already there, they're really textured because I used textured paste, so the stencil wasn't sitting properly. So as I'm putting this yellow gold through, it just all smudged out the back, and when I lifted that I was gutted. So I tried to figure out what do I do. I decided to grab a wipe and just try and wipe off as much as I could. And yeah, at this point I was pretty gutted, because, you know, I'd invested quite a bit of time in these, between doing them and waiting for them to dry and everything. So yeah, I wiped off as much as I could, and then I left it to dry, and I moved on. And then I decided to lean into it and just add lots and lots and lots of splatter. Unfortunately, I didn't catch that on camera. I apologise. I was a bit because I was so disappointed, but I'm glad that I stuck with it because I really like how the card turned out. So I fussy cut out my cityscape silhouette, and then I've popped it up on some foam tape, and then I'm adding my sentiment across here. So hopefully you can see what I mean now about it being a straight line with the sentiment fussy cut out the top. And yes, it didn't go entirely to plan, but I love it. Yeah, I think it's such a cool card, and I'm excited to give that to someone. I think it definitely captures the excitement of New Year. We can't wait for you to see the rest of the release. You've got some more sneak peeks coming later in the week, and then you'll get to see the full release on Friday. So if you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you aren't already subscribed, I'd love it if you'd consider hitting that button. Have a lovely, happy, safe and wonderful week. Stay crafty. Bye.